A New York State judge has upheld an order preventing the New York Times from publishing internal memos between activist group Project Veritas and its lawyer. The lawyer claiming those legal memos are not a matter of public concern and ordering the paper to return them. Project Veritas has been locked in a defamation lawsuit against the New York Times since last year, when the newspaper published a piece calling the group's work deceptive. Here to react, District Media Group President Beverly Hallberg. Beverly, great to talk to you this morning. So Project Veritas does a form of investigative journalism that very few other media organizations are willing to do these days, and that is to go out and seek the truth. Now, the New York Times has these documents where they say they've negotiated with their lawyers on ways to push the boundaries. Isn't that what, don't all media organizations have a legal team, and they talk to that legal team about how best to follow the law?
What this judge was looking at is whether or not the documents that the New York Times does have, whether or not there was the ability to publish them. And what makes this tricky is, as you just said, they are in an ongoing court battle. There is current litigation. The judge ultimately said no, one of the reasons because of that litigation. And so you're going to have a lot of media commentators who are decrying this decision, saying that this is a violation of the freedom of the press. I might even argue that that could be a true statement, but I would also ask those same commentators to call out the Biden's FBI for raiding a news organization, because I would argue that that's also a violation of the freedom of the press.
Yeah, so I appreciate you organizing this conversation for us. There's two separate issues at hand. One is this judge stepping in and stopping the New York Times from publishing the documents they got from Project Veritas, however the New York Times got it, from the DOJ or wherever. And Beverly, I would love for you to, that's a big deal, right, for a judge to step in. I believe they call that prior restraint. That hasn't happened since the 70s, right?
Yeah, this is something that I would argue is kind of stunning. A lot of people did not expect this decision. There are people who are praising and there are people who are saying that this is a violation of the freedom of the press. And I would argue it is a slippery slope. And I would say that we want to make sure that news organizations, especially when they're investigating, should be allowed to print the information they receive. Now, again, I have issue with how the New York Times received it. I have an issue if this was due to an FBI raid. That is a major issue, and I hope more people are decrying that and offering an investigation. I would even ask the New York Times to do some investigative reporting into that as well. But they aren't looking into the Biden administration's FBI raid. And so now here we are left with what should news organizations do with the information they receive, whether or not it was leaked or stolen.
Right. So really quickly, here's what the New York Times is saying. They're saying, in addition to imposing this unconstitutional prior restraint, there's that phrase, the judge has gone even further in order that we return the material, a ruling with no apparent precedent and no one that could present obvious risk to exposing sources should be allowed to let this stand. The second, really quickly, Beverly, we have less than a minute here, but the second issue, which I wanted to kind of organize this into, is what Project Veritas doing, against some ethical code of journalists? They mask their identity, they work with their lawyers to abide by the law, and they go in what they call sting operations to get the truth. And that's what the New York Times is trying to expose. The methods by which Project Veritas goes about and gets the truth.
I am all for anybody investigating Project Veritas, but the reality is, as a news organization, they have the ability to go out and get the information they want. What is never okay is for the Biden administration to use their FBI to go in and raid a news organization. I think that is of the greatest concern. People can investigate all they want, but when the government gets involved in that way, that's the problem.
Yeah, maybe more news organizations should put a greater emphasis on getting to the truth, not punish Project Veritas for doing so. Beverly, great to talk to you this morning.
Thanks so much.